So dear students, in this third part of the PPTs on hypertension and diabetic retinopathy, we'll essentially focus on what are the screening modalities which are described for diabetic retinopathy, what are the investigations and what are the treatment schemes that are being followed in diabetic retinopathy. So diabetic retinopathy patient when he is seen by us usually is into at least 5+ years of diabetic treatment, which might be with a good control or with an average control or with a very poor control. That we'll have to take. That history of his diabetic life is very important. Then we might see the patient on mild diabetic retinopathy, 1 or 2 microaneurysms, or we can see him with 1 or 2 quadrants affected. So this is the supranasal quadrant. This is the supranasal quadrant. This is supratemporal quadrant. Both are affected, so it becomes moderate retinopathy. Or we might see it all 4 quadrants being affected with these kind of dot and blot hemorrhages, cottonwool spots, hard exudates. All these are seen here. Can you see? And this kind of severe retinopathy stage, the patient can land up with you, or he can be in a very severe retinopathy where there is venous beading, looping, and Irma, and these kind of hard exudates. Any two of these changes present in all the 4 quadrants of retina. This kind of changes can be present when the patient is seen by you. Or still worse, the patient might not come at any of the moderate NPDR stages. He can only land to you with a neovascularization on the disc. Can you see a nice NVD on the disc? New vessels on the disc. There can be new vessels elsewhere. Can you see if you focus this on this pointed area of the picture, then you can see new vessels developing in elsewhere. New vessels elsewhere. These are new vessels elsewhere, and this is a new vessel on the disc. So this is like high risk PDR, where patient has turned up with a proliferative diabetic retinopathy. Proliferative diabetic retinopathy usually is classified as early PDR and high risk PDR, but that is basically academic. If you see a PDR, it is that much serious. There is no need to think of whether it's high risk PDR or what. And if you see new vessels on the disc, and that is like associated with some amount of vitreous hemorrhage, or it is more less than 1/4 of the disc area, or more than half of the disc area with the VH or PRH. This kind of classification is used for PDR with high risk characteristics. But whatever PDR is the RGP. If you see a new vessel, then it is PDR. Okay. Another area is like that diabetic maculopathy. If you see maculopathy, like if you see a hard exudate, which is in itself 500 microns in size, or which is within 500 microns from center of fovea, or which is like more than 1500 microns or larger than 1 disc diameter, that kind of changes, either a retinal thickening or a hard exudate. Retinal thickening or hard exudate is considered to be clinically significant macular edema. If you see clinically significant macular edema, then you will be more focused, because patient is going to lose vision because of this kind of changes. So when you see a diabetic maculopathy, when the macula itself is most affected by the diabetic changes, then you will do an fundus fluorescein angiography to assess the foveal avascular zone. Can you see? This is the foveal avascular zone, and this is the whole macular region. This is the whole macular region. In that, the foveal avascular zone should not expand beyond 350 microns. If the foveal avascular zone expands beyond 350 microns, then it is ischemia in the macula, which is still more dangerous. Okay. More than this kind of FFA, we will also do in maculopathy another investigation called OCT, optical coherence tomography. An optical coherence tomography is also done in a patient with diabetic maculopathy. So what is the best screening method? Any patient who is like type 1 diabetes 5 years after diagnosis, type 2 diabetes anytime at diagnosis should be seen first by the ophthalmologist. Then every 6 months, every 3 months, and every 2 months. This is the review schedule depending on what stage he is seen at the first time. If he's a mild NPDR patient, ask him to come every year. If he's moderate NPDR patient, ask him to come every 6 months. If he's severe NPDR, ask him to come every 3 months. If he's PDR, ask him to come every 2 months. That kind of review schedule and managing the patient with the treatment protocols which are available, it becomes very important in case of a diabetic retinopathy screening schedule. The screening schedule for diabetic retinopathy is got from the recommendations of the ETDRS study. So this is in itself a short note. Be aware of this slide, please. Now, what investigations are you going to do? Surely you will do a blood sugar. You will do a renal function, because if the retina is going to be affected as an end organ, simultaneously kidney might also be involved by as an end organ. So please also check renal function by doing urea and creatinine. And in a urine examination, also try to do microalbuminuria, which is proteinuria and microalbuminuria, which is a sign of renal damage. You have to surely do a hemogram and spot anemia, because anemia is a very big accompaniment of these kind of diabetic retinopathy patients worsening it severely. Then lipid profile. Lipid profile also is very important. Lipid profile is very important because hypercholesterolemia will also worsen. Basic BP. Don't forget BP. Okay, BP. The hypertension is also a very important investigation which you should not miss. If you miss hypertension by not doing BP and start doing everything, then you will land in a soup, because these accompanying factors in diabetic retinopathy, which are like having a capacity to worsen the disease, have to be checked and found out and treated adequately. So and we will also do glycosylated hemoglobin, because every time you do a fasting and postprandial, certain time the patient can manipulate it by taking a poor meal on that day alone. If he previous day night he sleeps with a very poor meal, then the next day morning fasting sugar will be correct only. That will make you into a false sense of security. Like you will think that the patient is under good control. The patient himself will think that he is under very good control. That should not happen. Every time you should check 3 months once glycosylated hemoglobin. That should be less than 7. And that will be a clear indicator of saying whether over the 3-month period on an average, patient has fared well with diabetic control or not. Can be assessed with a HbA1c. The next important investigation is fundus fluorescein angiography. You inject fluorescein, and with that fluorescein, you check the patient. The arm retina time is 12 seconds. Once you inject fluorescein in my antecubital vein, to come to the retina, it will take 12 seconds. Then after 12 seconds, you will see the retinal circulation of this fluorescein. You can even capture images of that retinal circulation with a camera, fundus camera. And these images can be analyzed for seeing for leak, non-perfusion areas, edematous areas, all these new vessels which are leaking, these can be easily detected with a fundus fluorescein angiography. Similarly, more so in diabetic maculopathy, you have to do an optical coherence tomography. This is another investigation which is very specific for macula. You will have a light passed on to the macula, and the light will be like analyzed. The light will be analyzed by the machine, and that light will be made to like into a multiple A-scan cuttings, and this will be graphed together, and this is called a OCT image. The OCT image will clearly tell you whether there is macular edema or not. These are the basic investigations which are done in a fundus fluorescein angiography. What is the treatment pattern? First is control. Obviously, first is control. and to control the associated factors like hypertension, this hypercholesterolemia, anemia. These need to be simultaneously corrected. That is very important. Metabolic control of diabetes mellitus. Next is diabetic macular edema. You have to use anti-VEGF drugs. Anti-VEGF drugs. Anti-VEGF drugs are very important. Anti-VEGF drugs are very important. Anti-VEGF drugs are the new armory which we have for treating diabetic retinopathy. We understood that diabetic retinopathy, after a phase of that non-proliferative phase, goes to the proliferative phase by the presence of VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor. So drugs like bevacizumab and ranibizumab can be used as an anti-VEGF drug. A new drug in this family today which is available is called aflibercept. Aflibercept. So these kind of anti-VEGF drugs are available. These anti-VEGF drugs are very, very important for us to treat this kind of diabetic macular edema. Similarly, you will say like the macular edema which is present can also be treated with steroids. And one of the steroids which is used is triamcinolone. Remember, all these drugs like bevacizumab, ranibizumab, triamcinolone, all will be injected only 0.1 ml, 0.1 ml, nothing more, 0.1 ml, or if at all lesser than that only. So this 0.1 ml of intravitreal injection into the vitreous cavity of the eye is done, and that is treating these diseases. Okay. Laser. The laser which is used here is called green laser. Remember, green laser is used here. Green laser. Okay, green laser. And the nanometer is 532. 532 nanometers. 532 nanometers is used. Certain times the olden books will refer to as argon laser. But now understand, argon laser is almost obsolete. It's not being used by us nowadays. So in the examination, I will sincerely prefer you to be saying more green laser, 532 nanometer solid state green laser, which is a frequency double Diag laser. It's a frequency double Diag laser. Even if you don't know the details of that, if you remember that 532 nanometer and green color, it is very enough. You can say that this is the laser which is used for photocoagulation. They'll ask you what photocoagulation methods you are going to follow. You will say like, if I have a macular damage, then I will use a grid laser photocoagulation. If you have a severe retinopathy, I will use a PRP, pan-retinal photocoagulation. Remember the word PRP, this they will ask you. What is PRP? PRP is pan-retinal photocoagulation, where the whole retina is photocoagulated except the macula and disc. That cricket pitch I told, no, that pitch alone is left. All the other areas of the field, cricket field, are photocoagulated, and that is pan-retinal photocoagulation. Macular photocoagulation is where only the macula is treated, and it is treated with focal or grid laser photocoagulation. Where do you do surgery? Complicated vitreoretinal surgeries are used in advanced diabetic eye disease. What are the advanced diabetic eye diseases we know of? The advanced diabetic eye diseases we know of are vitreous hemorrhage, tractional retinal detachment, and neovascular glaucoma. These are the advanced diabetic eye diseases. So now here in this slide, I want to show you the green laser. I told you, no, this is pan-retinal, where the whole retina is photocoagulated. We almost give these patients 1500 plus laser burns. Laser burns are given. These burns are 500 microns, and they are one burn width apart. Can you see? One burn and another burn has a width. That one burn width apart is given. This macula and the disc area, this area is avoided. This area is avoided. Okay. And this is a grid laser photocoagulation. Can you see? This is only the macular area is treated with a grid laser, and this is a macular area treated with focal laser. Okay. So focal laser and grid laser for maculopathy. These two are for maculopathy, and this is for retinopathy. So this is the laser photocoagulation techniques which we follow in case of diabetic retinopathy. So with this, we almost have taken an overview of a bird's eye view on hypertension and diabetic retinopathy. There are still more millions of points on all these points which we discussed. There are sub points in each of these points. But at your level, I want you to have a broad overview so that you will be able to understand the things which you read from your textbooks. You will understand the terms better. You will understand the implications of those the words better. And with that, I'm sure you will be able to answer any question on hypertensive retinopathy or diabetic retinopathy, retinal layers anatomy from these 3 PPTs. I wish you good luck. Thank you.